Commander Jake Martinez stood on the bridge of the human warship Thunderstrike, watching the screens that showed enemy ships moving toward Earth and all the human colonies across 12 star systems. His hands shook with anger as he read the message that had just arrived from the Galaxy Council headquarters on the planet called Nexus Prime, where all the alien races made their big decisions about who lived and who died in space. The message was simple and cruel, like a knife in the back. The Galaxy Council had voted to kick humanity out of their group and take away all human planets and give them to the alien races that had been in the Council since the beginning. They said humans were too dangerous and could not be trusted anymore, even though humans had done everything the aliens asked for 50 long years. Lisa Thompson was the human ambassador who had spent her whole life trying to make peace with the aliens, and now her voice came through the communication system sounding broken and tired. She told Jake that the vote was final, and that Council warships were already moving to surround every human world to make sure no one could escape what was coming next. Jake remembered when humanity first met the Galaxy Council 30 years ago, when human exploration ships found the edge of Council space near a star called Wolf 359. The aliens had seemed friendly at first, and invited humans to join their great alliance of 12 different species that ruled this part of the galaxy. They said humans could have planets and trade rights and protection if they followed Council laws and helped with Council military operations against something called the Devourers, which were ancient machines that ate entire worlds. For 30 years, humans had been good members of the Council. They shared their technology that was different from anything the aliens had ever seen. Human ships could talk to each other instantly across vast distances, using quantum communication that the aliens could not understand. Human shields could change and adapt to any weapon fired at them. Most important of all, human military officers were brilliant at strategy and tactics and had helped the Council win battle after battle against the Devourer machines. Humans had built factories on Council worlds and taught aliens how to make better tools and weapons. Human doctors had cured alien diseases that had killed millions. Human engineers had designed new types of space stations and planetary defenses that made Council worlds safer than they had ever been before. The aliens had praised humanity and called them the finest new members the Council had ever welcomed. But now Jake understood that it had all been a lie. The aliens had never really trusted humans and had only wanted to use human knowledge and abilities for their own benefit. When humans became too skilled and too important, the aliens got scared that maybe humans would become the leaders instead of staying as helpers. The Zephyrian ambassador named Kethvar had spoken for all the alien races when he made the accusation that would destroy everything humans had worked for. He said humans learned too fast and became too good at everything they tried. He said humans found weaknesses in alien military strategies and alien political systems that no one else had ever noticed. He said that maybe humans were friends today, but tomorrow they might use all their knowledge to conquer the galaxy. The other alien races had agreed with Kethvar, even the ones that humans had saved from Devourer attacks and alien plagues. The vote to expel humanity from the Council and seize all human territories was unanimous, which meant every single alien race voted against the humans who had helped them so much. Jake looked at the tactical display showing hundreds of alien warships surrounding Earth, where 4 billion humans lived their daily lives not knowing that their government had just been betrayed by every ally they thought they had. More alien fleets were moving toward the mining colonies in the Alpha Centauri system, and the research stations near Proxima Centauri, and the farming worlds that fed the human population scattered across dozens of star systems. The aliens had planned this betrayal carefully and moved their fleets into position while human representatives were still sitting in Council meetings thinking they were discussing trade agreements and defense strategies. The human military had been caught completely off guard because no one had imagined that their allies would turn against them so suddenly and so completely. But Jake Martinez had not become a fleet commander by giving up when things looked impossible. He opened a secure military communication channel that connected him to every human military officer and government official across all of human space. The channel used quantum encryption that the aliens had never been able to break, even though they had tried for years to figure out how human communication technology worked. Admiral Kate Robinson answered from Luna Station, where the human space fleet had its main headquarters. General Ryan Clark came online from the Mars defense grid that protected the inner solar system. Captain Paul Stevens reported in from the exploration ship New Horizon that was mapping new star systems far from Council space. Dozens of other officers connected to the emergency channel from bases and ships scattered across human territory. Jake told them all what had happened and what was coming next. He explained that the Council intended to arrest all human military, personnel and civilian leaders and relocate the human population to work camps on alien worlds, where they would be slaves for the rest of their lives. The aliens wanted human knowledge and human labor, but they did not want humans to be free to use their abilities for themselves. But humanity had prepared for this possibility, even though no one had wanted to believe it could really happen. For 20 years, a secret program called the Lazarus Protocol had been developing technologies and strategies for exactly this situation. Dr. Elena Vasquez had been in charge of the project, and she had built ships and weapons and tools that no alien race knew about. Jake took a deep breath and spoke the single word that would change everything for humanity and for the galaxy. The word had been chosen years ago by the Lazarus Planning Committee as the code that would activate every hidden system and every secret plan that could save the human race from total destruction. The word was simple and clear, and every human who heard it knew exactly what it meant. It meant that humanity would not surrender and would not become slaves and would not let the aliens win. It meant that humans would leave this galaxy behind and find somewhere else to build a new civilization that could never be betrayed again. Jake Martinez looked at the alien fleets on his screen and smiled coldly as he gave the order that would make the Galaxy Council regret their betrayal for the rest of their existence. The word echoed through every human military base and civilian command center across 30 billion people scattered through dozens of star systems, and the word was simple and devastating and final: Exodus. Admiral Kate Robinson heard it on Luna, station where the massive human fleet was docked and waiting for orders. General Ryan Clark received the transmission on Mars, where the planetary defense systems protected the red planet from any attack. Captain Paul Stevens got the message aboard his exploration ship New Horizon, which was mapping star systems beyond the edge of known space. Every human military officer and civilian leader understood what the word meant, because they had all been briefed on the Lazarus Protocol during their training, even though most of them had hoped they would never need to use it. Exodus meant that humanity would abandon this galaxy completely and take everything valuable with them, so that the aliens who had betrayed them would be left with nothing but empty worlds and broken dreams. Dr. Elena Vasquez had spent 20 years preparing for this day in secret research facilities, hidden in asteroid belts and on moons that the Galaxy Council had never bothered to investigate. While human representatives sat in council meetings, and human engineers built factories on alien worlds, the Lazarus Project had been creating technologies that would make the impossible evacuation not just possible, but swift and complete. The quantum tunneling drives had been the first breakthrough that made everything else possible. These engines could move entire fleets of ships instantly across distances that would normally take months or years to travel. The aliens knew that humans had faster ships than anyone else, but they had never imagined that human technology could actually fold space and time to make distance meaningless. Elena had also developed stealth composites that could make human ships and stations completely invisible to every type of sensor that alien races used. The material absorbed electromagnetic radiation and bent light around objects and created false readings on alien detection equipment. Human ships could sit right next to alien vessels and remain completely undetected for as long as necessary. But the most important part of the Lazarus Protocol was the Genesis seeds, which were terraforming packages that could turn dead worlds into garden planets in just a few months instead of the centuries that normal terraforming required. Each Genesis seed contained billions of engineered organisms that could process any type of atmosphere and soil and create the conditions needed for human life to flourish anywhere. As soon as Jake Martinez spoke the word Exodus, every human ship and station in the galaxy activated systems that the aliens had never seen before. Civilian transports that had seemed like ordinary cargo vessels suddenly revealed hidden compartments that could carry thousands of people in hibernation pods. Research stations that looked like simple scientific outposts began disassembling. themselves into components that could be quickly loaded onto ships and reassembled anywhere else. The evacuation happened faster than any alien race could react or respond. Earth itself had been honeycombed with hidden tunnels and underground facilities that could move the entire population through teleportation networks to ships waiting in space. The aliens had always wondered why humans built so many underground systems, but had assumed it was just human paranoia about asteroid strikes or solar flares. Admiral Robinson coordinated the Luna Station evacuation while watching alien ships approach Earth on her tactical displays. The alien fleets were moving slowly and carefully because they expected human resistance and wanted to minimize damage to the planets they planned to occupy. They had no idea that humans were disappearing faster than their sensors could track. The mining colonies in Alpha Centauri vanished first as thousands of transport ships loaded with people and equipment jumped instantly to predetermined coordinates in empty space between galaxies. The research stations near Proxima Centauri were next as human scientists activated quantum tunneling drives and took their entire facilities with them into the void. Captain Stevens coordinated the evacuation of the outer colonies from his position beyond the edge of Council space. His exploration ship New Horizon had actually been a command vessel for the secret fleet of ships that had been exploring other galaxies for the past 10 years looking for a new home for humanity. The aliens thought humans were just curious about nearby star systems, but actually human ships had been traveling to distant galaxies and finding perfect worlds for human colonization. The aliens arrived at Earth to find empty orbital platforms and abandoned cities with no signs of where 4 billion people had gone. The massive orbital factories that had been producing goods for trade throughout Council space were completely empty, but undamaged, as if the workers had simply stepped outside for a moment and forgotten to come back. On Mars, the alien landing, parties found empty settlements and silent defense installations with no indication of how millions of humans had evacuated so quickly and so completely. The underground cities that had housed human families for generations were clean and organized, but completely vacant, as if no one had ever lived there at all. Ambassador Kethvar commanded the alien fleet that reached the Alpha Centauri system, expecting to find the richest human mining colonies still operating and ready for alien occupation. Instead, his sensors showed nothing but empty space where the colonies had been, and no trace of the massive mining operations that had been extracting rare metals from asteroid belts for decades. The alien races had expected human resistance and had prepared for battle and siege warfare that might last for months or years. They had brought enough ships and soldiers to overwhelm any human defense, and had planned to occupy human worlds while slowly hunting down resistance fighters who might try to cause trouble. But they had not prepared for humanity to simply vanish completely and take everything of value with them. The human evacuation had been so thorough that the aliens found empty buildings and empty warehouses and empty spaceports with no equipment or supplies or anything useful left behind. Even worse for the aliens was the discovery that humanity had been far more important to Council civilization than anyone had realized. Human engineers had designed the communication networks that connected all Council worlds, and when the humans left, they took the technical knowledge needed to maintain those systems. Human doctors had been treating alien diseases, and when they disappeared, the medical facilities on dozens of worlds stopped functioning properly. The trade networks that moved goods between alien worlds had been organized and managed by human companies, and without human coordination, the alien races could not figure out how to maintain the complex supply chains that kept their planets fed and supplied with necessary resources. Dr. Vasquez smiled as she watched the final transport ships leave the galaxy behind and head toward their new home that human scouts had prepared in a distant galaxy where no alien race had ever traveled. The evacuation had taken exactly 6 hours and 43 minutes and had moved 30 billion humans and all their important technology and resources across millions of light years to safety. The Galaxy Council had betrayed humanity, but they had also freed humanity from any obligation to help the alien races survive what was coming next. 2 years had passed since humanity disappeared from the galaxy, and Captain Alex Turner stood on the bridge of the colony ship New Dawn, watching their destination grow larger on the main screen. The small galaxy that human scouts had named Haven was beautiful and pristine and completely empty of any spacefaring civilizations that might cause problems for human expansion and colonization. The journey through the void between galaxies had been long and dark, But humanity had used the time wisely to develop new technologies and prepare for building a civilization that would be stronger and more advanced than anything they had left behind. Dr. Elena Vasquez had led research teams on dozens of ships as the human fleet traveled through empty space, and her scientists had made breakthroughs that would have been impossible under the restrictions and regulations of the Galaxy Council. Without alien oversight and political concerns, human engineers had developed molecular assemblers that could build entire cities from raw materials in just a few weeks. Human biologists had created enhancement programs that improved human strength and intelligence and lifespan beyond anything that had existed before. Most importantly, human weapons designers had built defensive systems and offensive capabilities that would make sure no alien race could ever threaten humanity again. The Haven Galaxy contained thousands of worlds that were perfect for human habitation, and millions more that could be terraformed quickly using the improved Genesis seeds that Dr. Vasquez had perfected during the long journey. Human scout ships had spent months mapping every star system and cataloging every planet and moon and asteroid belt that could be useful for building the new human empire. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez monitored the long-range communication arrays aboard the science vessel Breakthrough, and her job was to keep track of what was happening in the galaxy that humanity had abandoned. The news from Council Space was getting worse every month, and showed that the alien races were discovering just how much they had depended on human knowledge and abilities. Without human tactical expertise, the remnants of the Devourer machine, civilization had regrouped and launched new attacks on Council worlds using strategies that the aliens could not counter effectively. The ancient machines were systematic and relentless, and they had learned from their previous defeats to develop new weapons and tactics that exploited weaknesses in alien defenses. The Council member races were also fighting among themselves over the empty human territories and the abandoned human facilities that no one knew how to operate properly. The Zephyrians claimed that they deserved the largest share of human worlds because they had been the ones to propose expelling humanity from the Council. The Kethvar species wanted control of the human orbital factories because they thought their engineers could figure out how human manufacturing technology worked. But the alien races were discovering that human technology was far more complex and sophisticated than they had realized. The factories and research stations that humans had left behind were empty shells without the quantum computers and molecular assemblers and artificial intelligence systems that had made them functional. The humans had taken all the important components with them and left only useless buildings and equipment that could not operate without human technical knowledge. Even worse for the Council was the realization that their own technology had stagnated during the decades of human membership because they had become dependent on human innovation and creativity. The alien races had grown lazy and complacent, while humans solved their technical problems and improved their systems and developed new capabilities that kept Council civilization advancing. Captain Turner reviewed the intelligence reports that showed how quickly Council space was falling apart without human support. The communication networks that connected alien worlds were failing because human engineers had designed them with quantum encryption systems that no alien race understood. The medical facilities on dozens of planets had stopped working properly because human doctors had been maintaining alien healthcare systems with techniques that alien physicians could not replicate. The trade routes that moved goods between Council worlds had been organized by human companies using mathematical models and logistical systems that alien merchants could not figure out how to operate. Entire planets were running short of food and manufactured goods because the supply chains that fed Council civilization had been managed by human administrators who understood the complex relationships between production and distribution better than any alien race. In Haven, Galaxy humanity was building something completely different from the civilization they had left behind. Instead of trying to fit into existing political structures and work within alien laws and restrictions, humans were creating a society based on human values and human capabilities without any external limitations or interference. The first human colonies in Haven were not just settlements but marvels of engineering and organization that transformed entire worlds in months instead of years. Human terraforming technology could change atmospheric composition and climate patterns and create ideal conditions for human life faster than any alien race had thought possible. But humans were not alone in Haven Galaxy. because they found dozens of primitive civilizations that had not yet developed space travel or advanced technology. Instead of conquering these species or treating them as inferior humans, offered friendship and assistance and shared knowledge that helped alien races advance peacefully and prosperously. The humans had learned important lessons from their experience with the Galaxy Council about the dangers of becoming too dependent on other species or trusting too completely in alliances that could be broken when circumstances changed. But they had also learned that cooperation and mutual assistance could create stronger and more stable civilizations than conquest and domination. Human colonies in Haven became centers of learning and trade that attracted alien species from across the galaxy who wanted to benefit from human technology and knowledge. But the relationships that humans built with these new allies were based on mutual respect and shared benefits rather than the unequal partnership that had existed between humans and the Council races. Dr. Vasquez established research facilities on a dozen worlds where human scientists worked alongside alien researchers to develop new technologies that would benefit everyone involved. Human medical knowledge helped cure alien diseases, while alien biological insights helped humans understand new possibilities for genetic enhancement and life extension. The military facilities that humans built in Haven were hidden deep in asteroid belts and on artificial stations that could not be detected by any known technology. Human weapons designers had created defensive systems that could protect entire star systems from attack and offensive capabilities that could destroy enemy fleets before they knew they were under attack. But the most important development in Haven Galaxy was the establishment of a new form of government that combined human organizational abilities with alien perspectives and experiences. The Haven Alliance was democratic and inclusive, but it was also designed to prevent the kind of betrayal that had destroyed humanity's relationship with the Galaxy Council. Captain Turner smiled as he watched human ships arriving at new worlds where cities were already rising from barren landscapes, and where alien species were learning to use human technology to improve their own civilizations. Humanity had found something in Haven Galaxy that they had never been able to achieve in Council space, which was the freedom to reach their full potential without restrictions or limitations imposed by fearful allies. The exile that was supposed to destroy humanity had instead transformed them into something stronger and more capable than they had ever been before. 5 years after humanity vanished from Council space, the galaxy was burning, and Ambassador Kethvar stood in what remained of the command center on Nexus Prime, watching his civilization collapse around him. The planet that had once been the proud capital of the Galaxy Council was now a bombed-out ruin where devourer machines stalked through broken streets hunting for survivors to process into raw materials for their ancient war machine. The devourer remnants had taken advantage of the chaos that followed humanity's disappearance to regroup and rebuild their forces using tactics that the remaining Council races could not understand or counter. Without human strategic advisors, the alien military commanders had made mistake after mistake and lost fleet after fleet to enemies they should have been able to defeat easily. Kethvar had been promoted to Supreme Chancellor of what was left of the Council, but his new title was meaningless because half the member races had declared independence, and the other half were too busy fighting each other to participate in any coordinated defense efforts. The Zephyrians had declared war on the Kethvar species over disputed human territories, and both races were spending their military resources attacking each other instead of fighting the devourers. The economic collapse had been even worse than the military disasters because Council civilization had become completely dependent on human innovation and management during the 50 years of human membership. The trade networks that moved goods between alien worlds had broken down completely because no alien race understood the complex mathematical models that human administrators had used to coordinate supply chains across dozens of star systems. The communication systems that connected Council worlds were failing one by one as human-designed quantum encryption networks degraded without proper maintenance that only human engineers knew how to perform. Entire planets were cut off from the rest of civilization and had no way to call for help when devourer fleets attacked their orbital defenses. But the worst part for Kethvar was the growing realization that a dozen former Council member races had petitioned to leave the Alliance completely and join something called the Haven Alliance that was rumored to exist in a distant galaxy. The Refugee ships that escaped from devourer attacks brought stories of human rescue fleets that appeared without warning to evacuate alien civilians before disappearing again into unknown space. Lieutenant Colonel Ben Hughes commanded the reconnaissance vessel Shadow Walker as it drifted invisibly through the ruins of a Zephyrian fleet that had been destroyed in battle with Kethvar forces 3 days earlier. His ship used stealth technology that was generations beyond anything the Council races had ever seen, and could observe alien military operations without being detected by even the most sophisticated sensor systems. The Shadow Walker was one of dozens of human intelligence-gathering ships that had been monitoring Council space throughout the 5 years since the Exodus. Humanity had never really left the galaxy completely, but had maintained a network of hidden observation posts and stealth vessels to keep track of what happened to their former allies. Major Katie Wells operated the sensor arrays that recorded everything happening in Council space, and transmitted the data back to human command centers in Haven Galaxy through quantum communication links that were impossible for alien technology to intercept or decode. The intelligence reports painted a picture of complete civilizational collapse that was happening faster than even the most pessimistic human projections had predicted. Hughes watched Kethvar's emergency fleet limping back toward Nexus Prime after another disastrous encounter with devourer forces, and felt a mixture of satisfaction and pity for the aliens who had betrayed humanity so completely. The Council races were learning too late that they had destroyed the only thing that had been keeping their civilization functional and progressive. The devourer attacks were becoming more frequent and more devastating as the ancient machines adapted their tactics to exploit the weaknesses that human advisors would have helped the Council avoid. The machine intelligence that controlled the devourers had spent years studying human strategic methods and had learned to counter alien defensive strategies by using techniques that humans had taught the Council during the war. But even more damaging than the external threats were the internal conflicts that were tearing Council civilization apart from within. The alien races had always been suspicious of each other and had only worked together because human diplomats had mediated their disputes, and human trade networks had made cooperation profitable for everyone involved. Without human mediation, the old ethnic and territorial conflicts between alien species had erupted into open warfare that consumed resources and attention that should have been focused on defending against the devourer threat. The Zephyrians and Kethvar were fighting over empty human colonies, while their homeworlds were being destroyed by machine fleets that they could have defeated if they had worked together. Hughes received orders from Human Command to initiate the next phase of the intelligence operation, which involved making contact with certain Council leaders who might be willing to negotiate for humanity's return. The message that Shadow Walker transmitted to Nexus Prime was brief and untraceable, but it contained enough advanced technology to prove that it came from a source with capabilities far beyond anything the Council possessed. The message reached Kethvar in his damaged command bunker and offered him something that he had been dreaming about for months but had never dared to hope might actually be possible. The humans were willing to talk about returning to help the Council, but only if very specific conditions were met, and only if the negotiations took place exactly according to human requirements. Kethvar read the message coordinates and realized that the humans wanted to meet in neutral space, far from any Council world or military installation, where they could control the environment completely. The location was a star system that the Council had mapped years ago, but had never bothered to explore because it contained no habitable planets or valuable resources. The Supreme Chancellor made the decision to go alone in a small diplomatic vessel because he knew that this might be the only chance to save what remained of Council civilization. The human message had made it clear that this was the only conversation that would be offered, and that rejection of human terms would result in permanent abandonment of the galaxy to whatever fate the Council races could manage on their own. As Kethvar's ship approached the coordinates, he was amazed to see a massive space station materialize around his vessel, using technology that seemed to bend space and time in ways that violated everything the Council knew about physics and engineering. The station was beautiful and terrifying and completely alien, despite being built by the humans who had once been Council members. The docking procedures were controlled entirely by the station's artificial intelligence systems, and Kethvar found himself being guided through corridors that were clearly designed by human architects, but used materials and construction techniques that were decades or centuries beyond anything that humans had possessed when they were members of the council. Colonel Frank Peterson was waiting in a simple conference room that could have been anywhere in the galaxy, except for the subtle indications that everything in the room was built using technology that made council science look primitive by comparison. The human officer looked exactly the same as he had 5 years earlier, which was impossible unless humans had developed life extension or time manipulation capabilities that no alien race had ever imagined. Peterson's first words made it clear that the humans were not interested in returning as junior partners or grateful supplicants, but as the dominant power that would restructure galactic civilization according to human priorities and human values. The price of human assistance would be the complete transformation of the political and economic systems that had governed the galaxy for thousands of years. Kethvar realized that he was not negotiating for humanity's return to the Council, but for the Council's submission to human authority. The negotiation that was supposed to last 15 minutes stretched into 6 hours as Ambassador Kethvar found himself facing not just Colonel Frank Peterson, but a holographic assembly of human leaders from across Haven Galaxy who had built an empire that dwarfed anything the Council had ever achieved. General Susan Carter spoke from the human capital of New Terra, where billions of humans lived in cities that combined the best of human technology with architectural principles learned from dozens of alien species. The human terms were presented without any possibility of negotiation or compromise, and they represented a complete reversal of the power structure that had existed in the galaxy for thousands of years. Humanity would return to Council space, but only as the senior partner in a new galactic government that would be organized according to human principles of efficiency and justice and technological advancement. The Galaxy Council would be dissolved completely and replaced with the Galactic Federation, which would be administered by human officials with advisory positions available to alien races that proved they could be trusted with limited authority. All former Council worlds would submit to human oversight and human law until their populations demonstrated that they had learned to govern themselves responsibly and peacefully. The alternative that Peterson offered was simple and final. Humanity would withdraw permanently from this galaxy and take with them the 12 alien species that had already pledged allegiance to the human empire in Haven. The Council races could face the Devourer threat and their internal conflicts alone without any hope of human assistance or intervention. Kethvar's pride and his survival instincts fought against each other as he tried to find some middle ground that would preserve alien dignity while securing human help. But Peterson made it clear that humanity had moved far beyond the stage where they needed to negotiate or compromise with anyone about anything. The proof of human capabilities was demonstrated when General Carter showed Kethvar what had happened to a rogue Devourer hive that had been discovered in an uninhabited star system near Haven Galaxy. The entire system, including the star itself, had been destroyed and replaced with a controlled nebula that served as a monument to human technological supremacy and a warning to anyone who might threaten human interests. Admiral Rebecca Martinez explained that the weapon used to destroy the Devourer system was just one of many new technologies that humanity had developed during their exile in Haven Galaxy, where they had been free to pursue research without the restrictions and ethical concerns that had limited their scientific progress while they were Council members. The humans had not just survived their exile, but had transcended every limitation that had previously constrained their development. They had built an empire spanning an entire galaxy and had elevated primitive alien species to spacefaring status, and had created military capabilities that could reshape solar systems according to human will. Peterson told Kethvar that the Council's betrayal had been the best thing that ever happened to humanity, because it had freed them from the obligation to consider alien fears and alien limitations when pursuing their technological and social development. The humans who were offering to return to Council space were not the same species that had been expelled 5 years earlier. But the most shocking revelation came when Peterson explained that humanity had never really left the galaxy at all. Advanced reconnaissance networks had been monitoring every Council world throughout the exile years, using stealth technology that made human observation ships completely invisible to alien detection systems. The humans had watched the economic collapse and the military defeats and the political chaos that followed their departure, and had chosen not to intervene because they wanted the alien races to understand completely what life was like without human assistance and guidance. The lesson had to be thorough and undeniable before humanity would consider returning to help. Dr. Elena Vasquez appeared as a hologram from her research facility in Haven Galaxy and explained that human scientists had used the exile years to develop technologies that would prevent any future betrayal from succeeding. The new human military could protect itself from any conceivable threat and could project power across galactic distances instantly using quantum tunneling networks that made distance and time irrelevant. The space station where the negotiations were taking place was itself a demonstration of human technological advancement because it had been constructed using matter manipulation techniques that could create massive structures from raw energy in just a few hours. The artificial intelligence systems that controlled the station were more sophisticated than anything that had ever existed in council space. Kethvar realized that he was not really negotiating at all, but was being informed of decisions that humanity had already made about the future of galactic civilization. The humans were offering the council races a choice between submission and abandonment, but they were not offering any opportunity to modify or influence the terms of that choice. The new galactic government that humanity proposed would be more efficient and more just than the old council system, because it would be based on human organizational principles that had been proven effective in Haven Galaxy. Alien species would have representation and protection under human law, but they would not have the authority to make decisions that could threaten galactic stability or human security. Peterson showed Kethvar recordings of the dozen alien species that had already joined the human empire and were thriving under human guidance and protection. These species had been primitive and struggling when humans first contacted them, but they had advanced centuries in just a few years with human assistance and were now contributing to the expansion and development of human civilization. The humans had learned from their experience with the Council that good intentions and generous assistance were not enough to maintain stable relationships with alien species who might become fearful or jealous of human capabilities. The new system would be based on clear hierarchies and unambiguous authority structures that would prevent the kind of misunderstandings that had led to the original betrayal. General Carter explained that humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or their military power, but their patience and their long-term planning abilities. They could wait decades for justice and centuries for revenge and millennia, for the right moment to reshape the universe according to their vision of what galactic civilization should become. The humans had used their exile to become something that the universe had never seen before, which was a species that combined technological supremacy with moral authority and organizational genius. They had proven that they could build better societies and solve problems that had plagued alien races for thousands of years. Kethvar accepted the human terms because he had no choice, and because he finally understood that humanity offered the only hope for galactic civilization to survive and prosper. The council races would have to learn to live under human authority, but they would be protected and guided by a species that had demonstrated the ability to create justice and prosperity for everyone under their care. The new galactic government began operations immediately as human fleets emerged from quantum tunnels to take control of key systems throughout council space. The transition was swift and efficient because humanity had spent 5 years planning every detail of their return and had prepared solutions for every problem that might arise. The word Exodus had begun as a desperate escape plan but had become the foundation for humanity's transformation into the guardians and rulers of galactic civilization. The aliens who had betrayed humanity out of fear had created the very thing they had been afraid of, but they had also created protectors who would ensure that such betrayals could never happen again.